Once upon a time, our beloved continent was this beautiful tree of life that gave life not only to humanity, but to life in general as we know it. Invaders came to our beloved continent centuries ago, and they started messing with this tree of life that is Africa. We must understand the tree that was, the tree that gave life to the world. We need to understand what has been done to this tree to take it to where we have the Africa that is no longer the center of the world. When we understand what has been done to Africa, it makes it easier for us to strategize on how we can undo the damage, the destruction that has befallen our motherland, the African tree of life. I think it's clear that we understand for this tree to have issues. The issues are either issues above the ground, which is what they have mostly wanted us to focus on, versus issues below the ground, which are really the pivotal issues, the issues that they strategized to see to it that Africa and her children are forever defeated and dominated. Allow me to classify the issues, the reasons why this tree of life that is Africa is ailing. And I'm going to divide the issues between the two. Problems that are causing this tree to ail, but problems above the root, above the ground. And issues that are making this tree ail that are below the ground, issues of the root. Quite often, we are focusing on the issues above the root, issues above the ground. Issues like the leaves and the flowers and the fruits and the branches that are falling off one season after another. Those issues like leadership, issues like corruption, issues like poor access to healthcare, poor education, poor infrastructure. Those are all issues above the ground. They come and they go. We change leaders every day in Africa. But tell me one African country that changed a leader and things changed. We might see some improvement, but fundamentally, nothing changes. This was all by design. Where we are lacking in our understanding of our Africa is the issues below the ground, the issues of the root, the issues that were predetermined by those who came to colonize Africa, those who came to settle in our beloved continent.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to my YouTube channel once again. My name is Dash Lifestyle. Kindly for watching me for the first time, remember to subscribe, like, share, and also comment. So guys, I want us to continue watching this great speech from one of our African leader. She's known as Dr. Arikana. Dr. Arikana, she's coming out and exposing how the Western countries, they colonize and destabilize black countries in the Caribbean and also African country. So let us continue watching this great speech, then I'll be back with more comment.
Remember, when they came to Africa, the settlers, they found an amazing continent with everything and anything the world could ever need. Well-established religious and educational systems. And they wondered, how on earth can we ever conquer such an amazing continent unless we come up with a strategy that will see to it that Africa and her children are forever defeated and dominated. I repeat, unless they came with a strategy that would see to it that Africa and her children are forever defeated and dominated. To start with, when the colonizers came to Africa, we didn't have the issue of color. Black and white did not exist in our languages. We were Africans. The missionaries were sent in with specific instructions to make the Africans believe that everything African was bad and everything European was better and more desirable. They put in motion a process of making us dislike that which was ours and go all out to embrace what the new invader was bringing to our beloved continent. I have to give it to them. They did a very good job at doing that. They hit us where it hurt the most, the mind. The missionaries taught us about white angels. The missionaries taught us about the devil who was black. The missionaries are white, like the angels. And that when we go to church, we must worship the white angels. And definitely want nothing to do with the black devil who looks like us. Subliminal messaging. Subliminal messaging. That's where we began the self-hate, the mistrust of each other, the lack of appreciation, an idea that is coming from your brother, an idea that is coming from your sister, because we are taught to dislike anything to do with us. That, my brothers and sisters, was level one, number one level of destroying the African, the mind. Then they followed it with colonization, a systematic way of saying, now that we have made the African believe that everything African was bad and everything European was better, let's take it to the next level. So it is that they met in Berlin and decided to chop up our country, our continent rather. So it is they met in Berlin, Germany, at the invitation of the then Chancellor of Germany, Bismarck, specifically to come up with a strategy that once again would see to it that Africa and her children are forever defeated and dominated. They spent 4 months, 4 cold months in Berlin, Germany, from November of 1884 to February of 1885. And by the time they were done, our Africa had been chopped up into the tiny little countries that we see today. Countries that were intentionally divided in such a way that individually they will never survive. That individually they are easy to exploit. The whole purpose was to see to it that they can continue to exploit the rich natural resources that we were endowed with in our beloved continent. A united Africa is an Africa that is difficult to exploit. An Africa that speaks with one voice is an Africa that is difficult to exploit. So it is what they came up with, their strategy of 1884 during the Berlin Conference, is what gave us the Africa that we have today. An Africa that has countries like Benin, countries like Togo, countries like Central Africa Republic, Niger. As a matter of fact, all African countries. Then they turned around and said, okay, here we are. You are independent countries. Of course, during the Berlin Conference and during colonization, every one of those countries was controlled from those capitals in Europe until independence. When our Pan-African fathers began to say there's something wrong with this picture, we can no longer continue to be subservient in our own continent. So they began to push back. And this is what led us to get the fake independence, where we were given political liberation, limited political liberation to this day. But what they kept and never let go, which brings me to issue number 3 of the root, was the economic liberation. You see, you got to understand that when we were under colonization, the companies that ran the economies of all African countries were companies that belonged to the colonizer. If a country was colonized by the British, the majority of the companies that controlled the economies of those countries were British. If you were colonized by the Germans, German companies. If you were colonized by the French, French companies, and so forth. That, my brothers and sisters, they never gave up. They still continue to control the economies of their former colonies to this day. Let's go back and summarize where we are so far. The issues of the root. They messed with our mind. Berlin Conference. They divided us up, chopped up into tiny little economies that simply cannot survive on their own. And thirdly, in the name of giving us liberation, they never actually left our beloved continent. Economic liberation was denied the Africans to this day. If you go into any African country today, the majority of the employers are multinational companies from those colonies, former colonies, who never left at independence in the 1950s to 60s. The colonizers have never left Africa. Issue number 3 of the root. In the 1940s, they created the Bretton Woods institutions. The Bretton Woods institutions were created with the fair understanding that their success was based on the failures of the developing countries, the majority being in Africa. So it is the international monetary policies are skewed in such a way that African countries are forever going to be paying debt they will never finish paying off. The average African country, as we speak today, spends about 1/3 of their GDP on loan repayment. How can a country survive? It's all by design. Countries that have never defaulted on their loan repayment, and yet the rating agencies continue to give them poor ratings so that they can justify giving them high interest loans. We must understand the international finance system and how it is keeping their knees on the necks of the African countries. The international finance system must be analyzed, and we're asking those involved to give Africans a break, and that we must treat Africa fairly. We must demand that. Issue number 4 of the root. The international trade policies. You see, the continent still has 80% of its natural resources. Africa is the continent where the rest of the world is going to for their needs. Gold, check. Diamonds, check. Oil, check. Coltan, check. Copper, check. The list goes on. It's all in our beloved Africa, and the world wants it. The world wants our natural resources. Here is the problem. Going back to the Berlin Conference, the international trade policies make it very difficult for African countries to add value to our natural resources. Hence, as we speak today, the majority of the natural resources coming out of Africa leave Africa without value addition. Have you ever wondered, why is it that over 65% of the world cocoa beans come from West Africa, and yet it's only recently, past couple of years, that we started seeing a few factories manufacturing chocolates? It was all by design, thanks to the unfair trade policies. Have you ever wondered, why is it that we get coffee and tea from Switzerland? Have you seen the large coffee fields in Switzerland? A good portion of that is coming from our beloved continent, East Africa. Why are we not questioning the large quantities of coffee and tea coming out of certain countries when they are not growing that much coffee, when they are not growing that much tea in their countries? Why are these countries allowed to get away with relabeling African products as their own? It's all by design. The world trade policies that give a blind eye to atrocities that are being committed on our beloved continent. That's issue number 5 of the root. We must understand the international trade policies and how they're keeping Africans from creating the much needed jobs in our beloved continent. You take, for example, coltan alone. If we were to say every item, every microchip that requires coltan must be manufactured in Africa, that means that microchip in your cell phone, in your laptop, in our electric cars, the list goes on. That alone could create millions of jobs for the Africans, so we can no longer talk about unemployment for our youth. That alone Have you ever wondered if we were to say everything that requires chocolate must be manufactured in Africa? Do you know how many jobs we could create? Those who are manufacturing chocolates outside Africa, all they're adding is water and milk. Do people even know that? Does the world even know that? Cities are built out of African cocoa beans. Does the world know that? Why is that being allowed? It's the unfair trade policies. I could go on and on and on about the natural resources out of Africa that are creating jobs for the rest of the world. That has got to change. And we African diaspora must understand it, appreciate it, and do something about it. Issue number 6. See, we all talk about, we want change in Africa. We want better health care. We want better education. We want better infrastructure. Well, guess what? No amount of money put into Africa will give us the health care we desire. Why? It's because the majority of the healthcare workers are outside Africa. Like I often say, there are more Ghanaian doctors in New York City than in Ghana, the country. There are more Nigerian doctors in Los Angeles than in the country of Nigeria. How then do you improve healthcare if there are no doctors? Let's be realistic, my brothers and sisters. This is a moment for you to stop and think. We can't expect quality healthcare to just happen out of nothing. We have to participate. The capacity that Africa needs to build the Africa that we want, to build a sustainable Africa, is in the diaspora. And that's you and I, my brother and sister. The brain drain that has occurred in Africa over the past 400 years must be reversed. There is no two ways about it. We have got to make a decision as the children of Africa in the diaspora. We must understand our Africa. We must understand the issues that are causing this tree of life that is Africa to be ailing to the extent that it is. The issues above the root and issues below the root of this tree. Allow me to summarize them, because it is important that we understand them. Because when we fully appreciate what is going on in Africa, we will stop being thrown a shiny object and run after the shiny object, while the real issues are in the opposite direction. 1, leadership. 2, corruption. 3, poor access to healthcare, poor educational systems, poor infrastructure. Those are issues above the ground. Those are the flowers and the fruits and the leaves and the branches. If they allow, or rather, if we allow ourselves to concentrate on issues above the ground and totally ignore the issues below the ground, which are, once again, the mind. By that I'm talking about the legacy of colonization and the legacy of slavery. The legacy that makes us believe we are inferior to others, and that what we do is inferior to what those from the Western world do. We must heal from the disease of the legacy of slavery and colonization. Our minds must wake up. Secondly, the Berlin Conference, and what that meant when they divided Africa up into the 10 little economies. China cannot go into the same boxing ring with Benin. The United States cannot go into the same boxing ring with Central African Republic. It simply doesn't make sense. It was all by design. Then the colonizers, who never left our Africa, they continue to control the economies of all African countries to this day. And until the African has control of our own economies, nothing we want to do is going to give us the Africa that we need, the sustainable Africa that we want. We must own the factories that manufacture our fabrics. We must own the brick plant that's making the bricks that we need to build our houses. We must build our own planes. We must build our own airports. We must build and own the railway lines and the trains. Manufacturing is where it's at. We must own the fundamentals of our economies in Africa. Sadly, the multinationals that go back to colonization have never left our beloved Africa. Issue number 3. Issue number 4, the international finance policies that disadvantage developing countries, the majority of those countries being in Africa. The international trade policies that are so unfair to developing countries. And once again, the majority are in Africa. And as we speak today, Africa is where everybody is going. All other parts of the world are going for their needs. And last but not least, the brain drain. Here, my brothers and sisters, you should own this. If we don't come together and speak with one voice, if we don't come together and realistically look at the issues that are causing this African tree to ail, we have no one to blame but ourselves. And so now I have described the issues, the causes for this African tree of life to be in the intensive care. I can tell you the solutions are easy. Once we understand what is being done to our tree, once we understand why this tree of life is not giving us the sweet, juicy fruits like it used to once upon a time, what this moment is calling for, my brothers and sisters, is for unity. Unity among black people. Unity of purpose. If we do not unite as black people, we will continue to be the most disrespected race on earth. You know it. I don't have to overemphasize that. The question I have for you is, are you happy with the status of black people today on earth? Are you happy with the world the way it is today? Are you happy living this world the way it is for your children, grandchildren, and generations to come? I hope. The answer is no. 20 years from now, your children and grandchildren are going to ask you, grandfather, grandmother, there were issues with our beloved continent Africa. There were problems with the race, our race, as black people. What did you do, grandmother? What did you do, grandpa? For you to be able to answer that question, that journey begins now. My hope is 20 years from now, you can say, granddaughter, grandson, sit down. These were the issues in our beloved Africa. These were the issues with black people. Together with my brothers and sisters, we came together. We pulled our financial resources together, and this is what we did. While the mission is not yet accomplished, this is where we left off. And this is where you, together with your brothers and sisters, need to come together and pick up where we left off. But we should also guarantee them 2 things. 1, they will always have our shoulders to stand on. And secondly, we will always have their back. The journey to be able to answer that question to our children and grandchildren begins today. It is important that we speak with one voice. The rule of divide and conquer has been winning among us for far too long. The issue of a divided Africa, the issue of a divided people of African descent around the globe is an issue that we and only we can address and take care of. Naturally, you don't expect those who set out to divide us to do something about it. Until we participate in the building of Africa, sustainable Africa is never going to be built. Those who sought out to exploit Africa, they built an Africa that worked for them. The Africa they built never worked for us. So we must build the Africa that we want. And once we unite, the next thing is financial resources. We are not poor people by any stretch of imagination. To women I say, look at how many clothes, handbags, dresses, shoes in your closet that still have tags on. Can you imagine if everybody committed to $83 a month, and we get 1 million people out of the over 300 million in the diaspora, just 1 million to commit to $83 a month. That's $1 billion a year. Now let's make it 5 million people. Let's make it 5 years, 10 years to perpetuity. How do you think the Jews got to be as powerful as they are now after Holocaust? They came together. They understood that sheer survival was in their unity. Not only unity physically, but also financial unity. They pulled their funds together, and they have built a strong, powerful Jewish community. We have examples all around us. Ask for the voices of the Chinese diaspora loud and clear. Ask for the voices of the Indian diaspora, the Irish diaspora, German Americans, Italian Americans, loud and clear. But when you ask for the voices of the African diaspora, you might as well go to the graveyard. We are missing in action. We are waiting for somebody to come take care of our problems because we've been programmed to think that way. Examples that we see every day. Somehow, we don't have the energy to say, we can do it too. We are suffering from the disease of the legacy of slavery and the legacy of colonization. We are in the intensive care, my brothers and sisters. We have got to understand this. We have got to heal ourselves from this disease. Until we do, our ability to help ourselves is always going to be hindered. And that means we all must understand our history and the journey that we have been through. I feel very strongly that most of us, we're still in our slumber. We're still fast asleep. We continue to do some of the most stupid things as black people. You tell me why. I get ignored by my own son at the airport when I want my son to help me with my luggage. A young boy who could easily be my son or my grandson. Because they are waiting for the British Airways flight that just landed. White people tip better. They are waiting to wait on the British people that are coming from London, and they ignore me. You tell me why. I'm ignored at a restaurant because of the color of my skin, by one who looks like my own daughter, by one who looks like my own son. Tell me why. I have a better chance of getting a contract in Africa if I have a white man as my partner, if I have a white man sitting next to me when I go for an interview. How insane is that? Tell me why. A black man will go out of business in a black neighborhood the minute a Chinaman comes in. Because we black people will start patronizing the Chinaman. We'll turn it around. Have a black man go to Chinatown. First of all, you're lucky to get a license to start a shop in Chinatown. But any luck should you open a shop in Chinatown, 0 Chinese will patronize you. We know all those facts. Why is it that we can't behave like others do? Unity of purpose. My brothers and sisters, may I remind you that we're part of somebody else's strategy. Strategy designed to see to it that Africa and her children are forever defeated and dominated. Let us be the generation. Let's make a commitment that we are going to be the generation that's going to end this scourge. We are going to be the generation that's going to teach our children that we have been lied to. But we're not going to accept those lies anymore. Let's speak nothing but the truth to our children. We owe it to them. Let's teach our children our history. We got this. We can do this. 2 things we gotta do. Unite and bring our financial resources together. All of it will work if we can heal ourselves of the legacy of slavery and the legacy of colonization. Once our minds are awoken, once we understand our history, once we understand the journey that we have been put through, the rest is easy. We can do this. We can do this. The beautiful, intelligent, sophisticated, highly adaptable, and total indestructible Africans. We can do this. Without a doubt. We got this. And we owe it to our children, grandchildren, and generations to come.
My brothers and sisters, I think let us be a bit realistic about what is going on in the world today. Many years ago, in Berlin, Europeans sat down and subdivided our continent, at times separating a brother from our sister. After they finished doing that and colonizing us, they went ahead and taught us to fear, hate, and keep away from each other. So you are my neighbor, but I fear you, and I don't want to mingle with you. Let me give you an example and use a few African examples. Today, it is easier for a European to travel within Europe without requirement of a visa. They can trade, make money, visit each other, spend money, and the European Union area, they're making a lot of money, they're becoming rich and rich every day. In Africa, our former colonies and what they taught us still prevails. Then they mingle among each other. Today in Africa, the reality is that for an African to visit a European nation, an ordinary African, to visit a European nation, is like, let me give you an example my teacher used to use. It's like trying to milk an elephant because of the visa process. However, for a European to visit an African nation, most of our nations, it is like a walk on the beach. It's like going to have a cup of tea. But then that is not the problem. The tragedy is that now for an African to visit a fellow African within the African Union, the visa restrictions in many of our nations, among us, between our brothers and sisters, is like trying to brush the teeth of a crocodile. They came, divided us, and they have taught us to keep each other from each other. Then they're mingling with each other and making money and growing, but they have taught us to hate each other. But for us to really enjoy the true economic benefits of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, we need to behave like the Europeans and allow for the free movement of people and trade. Our development agencies, such as the African Union Development Agency and others, cannot really succeed when there are all these restrictions among ourselves. To this end, in our contribution to this continental aspiration, Kenya is committed to progressively, and we are moving very fast by the end of this year, to abolish visas to citizens from African Union member states to make it easier to invest and do business in Kenya and across the continent. We are going to open the borders of Kenya. We do not fear our fellow Africans. Come, travel to Kenya. Live, do business in Kenya. Trade, make money in Kenya. And we hope we'll get reciprocity with the rest of you. Let us open our continent so that we can make money and live together. Let us remove the shackles of colonialism that are still embedded in our heads and be able to move forward. Mr. Chairperson, Excellencies, climate change continues to ravage lives and livelihoods of millions. We must remain faithful in the implementation of decisions that we make in our sessions. Let me say something that some of you may not like. African Union needs to be self-reliant. As long as the bulk of the AU funds come from outside the African continent, we somehow will find ourselves dancing to the music that is not of our own making. Therefore, we must address the issue of reforms that will enable us to fund our own programs. Funding that comes from our friends is good, but it needs to be funding that is in support of our programs and not our lifeline. Therefore, this calls for a critical look at the architecture of the African Union and the way we implement our decisions and the way we fund this continent. It's a discussion that we must have, and we must agree to ourselves that we need to take care of ourselves so that others can support us, but we are not being told to dance. My teacher used to say that at times when you're wearing somebody's suit, you know, and you start dancing, they start telling you slow down because you may ruin that suit. You know, we want to wear our own suits and dance the way we want, not to the tunes of other people.
If you're African or somebody interested in African affairs, please stop scrolling. There's a huge corruption going on in Africa and we need to talk about it. A lot of African leaders are so corrupt that they would choose their power over their country. And such views make it harder for African countries to grow and prosper. I believe 99% of African problems are rooted in corruption. If we would choose better leaders that are better equipped for our countries, African countries would be in a different position right now. Corruption should be the main concern in Africa right now, as most of the problems in African countries are rooted in that. And so we as Africans need to be more wary of that. So thank you for watching.
So guys, I hope you have watched that great speech from one of our African leader. I really love to bring Dr. Arikana to this channel because she's that one of our African leader that she's fearless to send and to expose the Western countries, what the colonizers they were doing in our country, how these people they have made our country to be a third world country, how these people they are still up to date destabilizing our African and black countries in the Caribbean. So this is Dr. Arikana coming out and exposing the Western countries of how they are doing bad things to our African and black countries in the Caribbean. So Dr. Arikana, she has come and talk about, first of all, she has talked about corruption in our African leaders. Right now, we know that majority of the problem that Africans we have, it is because of also of our African leaders who they are puppet, who they are corrupt. It is because of them that our country it is still being called third world country. It is not only here in Africa. We have seen some of our black leaders in the Caribbean. The leaders that have become a sellout leaders. The leaders that have become a puppet. They are leaders. They don't care. They don't work according to the will of their people. So these leaders they are ended up also supporting the Western countries to come to our country and take our resources. It is because of these corrupt leaders that we are still having in Africa. Dr. Arikana, she has come out and said that why is it African when we are changing a leader, the leader who is coming to power, he or she still do the same as the leaders that we have removed he's doing. What it is the problem that we are having to our leaders? You can see our leaders, they usually become puppet when they step into power. Majority of them before getting the power, they usually promise us black people to they will work according to the will of the people. They will do a lot of good things. But when these leaders they are stepping in, these leaders they are getting the power, these leaders they are now changing. They are now working to the Western countries. They are now becoming puppet. They are now selling out our minerals, our resources that we are having to the Western countries. So for us Africans to unite, for us Africans to grow, for us African to become one of the first world country, we need also to check these corrupt and puppet leaders. We need to remove them into power. And also another thing that Dr. Arikana she has come out and talk about it is unity. She wants us black people to unite because the other races, they're speaking with one language. You can see the Chinese, they're speaking with one language. You can see the Indians, they're speaking with one language. You can see the white people, they're speaking with one language. These people, they're supporting each other. These people, they do business with each other. But when it comes to us black people, first of all, we are not united. Another thing, black people, we are not supporting each other because we black people, we are the ones who are going to support these other races. And that's why we are making these other races to be ahead of us because of us black people supporting them. We need to see black people supporting their fellow black people. We need to see black Americans supporting the black people in the Caribbean, the black people in the Caribbean supporting African people. We want to see all black people uniting so that we can speak with one language. And the biggest thing that we are having it is unity, and these people also they managed to conquer us because of our disunity. We black people, we need to come together, we need to unite as Dr. Arikana she has come out and talk about unity in us Western people. And also another thing that Dr. Arikana, she has talked about is how the Western, they destabilize our African country. These people are the ones to be blamed, because they are the ones who are calling our African country third world country. They are showing bad image of how children in Africa, they are dying with hunger, how people, they are really struggling to live, to get their meal here in Africa, and all of these things that they are showing to their national medias, to the Black Americans, to their children about Africa. It is because of them. They're the ones who are making our children to die with hunger. They're the ones who are making our country to be called a third world country, because these are the people who they came and destabilize our country. These are the same people who are taking out our resources, and they are going with our resources to process it in their country. And because of that, they are creating more jobs to their children, and they are leaving Africa to be with no jobs. That's why majority of our black people, they are going out of our country. They are going to the Western countries to look for greener pasture, to look for more opportunity. It is because of our resources from here in Africa that they are using to create more jobs there. So we need to blame this Western country to stop destabilizing our African country. These are the same people who they are coming out and turning our leaders to be a puppet leaders. They are bribing our leaders to sell out our resources, our minerals that we are having in our country, so that they can build so that they can develop their country with our resources. And yet they're the ones who they are calling Africa third world country. African people, they are dying with hunger. Africa, it is not a country to live. And yet we know that these are the same people who they are making our country to be like that. So to our African leaders, we need also to stop our resources going out of our country. We need also to process our resources from here in Africa, because I know these Western people, they don't have resources. These people, they don't have resources. These people, they depend so much here in Africa. So we need also to cut our resources going out of our country. We need to process it here so that we can see how these people, they will live. I know these people, they usually try to bribe our leaders. They are turning, I cannot blame our leaders. It is because of the Western people. They are coming and turning them to be a puppet. They are coming and tell them to be a sellout leaders. And if they are not going to become a sellout leaders, they usually get threats from the Western country. Yeah, if our leaders here in Africa is not doing according to how the Western people they want, that leaders usually being targeted. You can see he's being assassinated. Yeah, that's how these people, they usually do. If you can't go according to how these people, the Western people, they want, they are eliminating those leaders who exactly they are fighting with them. You can see how Ibrahim Traore is surviving, because Ibrahim Traore is being targeted. There has been like 10 assassination attempts towards Ibrahim Traore because of what he's doing. We have seen Ibrahim Traore is kicking out the Western countries. He has cut he has managed to remove those colonizers who they were having their military in his country. He kicked them out, and also he stopped the resources going out of his countries, because majority of the Burkina Faso resources, they were going out of their country, but the people, they were not benefiting. So when Ibrahim Traore get into power, he cuts all those resources which it was going to the Western countries. And right now we can see there's much development which it is going on in Burkina Faso, that is courtesy of Ibrahim Traore. And also how these people, they destroyed Africa. So these people, they destroyed Africa in so many ways. These people, they came first of all during colonization period. They conquered us through the mind. Yeah. These people, they brainwash us. These people, they told us, oh, you guys, you are black. A black, it is not a good color. Black, it is color which it is not, you cannot embrace a black color. You guys, you need to start embracing a white color, because white, it is being associated with good, but black color, it is being associated with bad. So this is how these people, they confused and brainwash us black people. They conquered us through the mind, whereby they were telling us black people that you should not support your fellow black person. You need to support white race, yellow race. These are the race that you black people, you need to embrace, you need to support. And also because of that, these people, they came out and gave us a picture of a white Jesus, telling us that this is the white Jesus, you need to worship a white Jesus. So this is how these people, they managed to brainwash and to conquer us black people. But right now, I'm so happy to see majority of our leaders, majority of our school professors, they're coming out and educate us black people and showing us the way and exposing how these people, they have been taking advantage of us black people. So seeing all Dr. Rikana, we are having so many right now, our African professor, a law professor, who they are coming out and exactly exposing the Western people, educating our fellow black people so that we can know we have had enough of the Western countries. We need to stand by ourselves. We need to do what it is right. We need to claim what it is ours, because these people, they are having our precious things. They are stealing our resources from here in Africa. So right now, we need also to cut and to stop our resources getting out of our country. So kindly guys, subscribe if you haven't, like this video, share, and also comment. See you on my next one. Bye bye guys.